boxing, taekwondo, and judo. Bolaji was only 20 years old, but he was considered by most people to be much bigger than most boys his age. He also worked out and had really good genes, so he was a towering, tall, and muscular boy. Meanwhile, at home, Bolaji's family were preparing frantically for Christmas, arranging Christmas lights and arranging all the items they had just bought from the market in the store or in the freezer. Like most families in Nigeria on the day before Christmas, Bolaji's family were riled up in preparation for the big night. Christmas nightmare. It's that time of the year again for Bolaji, when he has to drop everything he has going on in his life for this peculiar ceremony that billions of people around the world have chosen to celebrate, Christmas. As Bolaji sits in the public bus, a rickety Toyota Ice, sitting carelessly by the side of the expressway, waiting to fill up with passengers traveling to Lagos. He thinks back to when Christmas was simply a time of the year when he simply received mandatory gifts, washed excess plates used by his visiting cousins, and sang the popular Christmas carol right after pulling an all-nighter on Christmas Eve. These days, Christmas looks different for Bolaji, and even though he never really liked Christmas, he secretly used to look forward to seeing his cousins and fighting over the last plate of jollof rice with his two sisters. His mother, often considered a beautiful ray of sunshine by all who knew her, was the biggest fan of Christmas, and every Christmas she was always more than eager to cook all sorts of delicacies garnished with the greatest symbol of Christmas in any Nigerian home, the Christmas chicken. Bolaji often wondered why the chickens were regarded with more reverence during Christmas than any other time of the year, when they were relatively the same chickens they had been eating all year round. Every year, right around Christmas, Bolaji was used to hearing his mother's voice, filled with so much enthusiasm and joy, calling out to him to get the chickens ready for the pot. Bolaji, oh yeah, go and take the chickens from their cage and kill them quickly. We need to get them ready for frying, so we can make stew too, you know. Oh yeah, go quickly so that your sisters can start peeling their feathers. Bolaji used to think his sisters had the better job of simply peeling the feathers off the skin of the deceased poultry. But after he offered to help one day and scalding hot water burned his skin while he was defeathering the Christmas chicken, he never offered to help with that task anymore. Bolaji used to feel sympathy for the poultry animals, but after a while, he began to feel nothing. The first time he killed the chicken, he felt terrible for the entire week, like he had just taken the life of a person. Even when his mother told him that it was okay to kill chickens and other animals, he never really saw it that way. But these days, he simply doesn't think of them as living, breathing animals anymore. Instead, he simply regards them as just another Christmas task that needed to be done. And he did it very well. By the time Bolaji was done with his task, no chicken was usually left standing. Bolaji's dad, Mr. Williams, is a well-known businessman with multiple ventures spread across Lagos State and other states in Nigeria. Bolaji's father is barely ever around. But one time of the year that Mr. Williams never misses is the Christmas and New Year season. Bolaji's father usually insists that it's because it's a time for the family to be together and bond. But Bolaji knows that it's because his mother would be very furious with her husband if he ever missed Christmas for any reason other than someone's demise. Bolaji's mind drifts back to reality, and he notices that the bus is almost full. His mother doesn't like it when Bolaji takes public transport back home. She has begged him so many times to let her send a driver to pick him up from the university whenever he wants to come home. But Bolaji always refuses. He has always insisted that the only way for him to connect with other people and not become a sheltered child like his sisters is to do things that people in his position would not normally do. Whenever she asks, what if something happens and he is kidnapped? Bolaji always replies saying, mommy, see my size now. Do you think anybody will try to kidnap me like this? Is that not why I am learning boxing, taekwondo and judo? Bolaji was only 20 years old, but he was considered by most people to be much bigger than most boys his age. He also worked out and had really good genes, so he was a towering, tall and muscular boy. Meanwhile, at home, Bolaji's family were preparing frantically for Christmas, arranging Christmas lights and arranging all the items they had just bought from the market in the store or in the freezer. Like most families in Nigeria on the day before Christmas, Bolaji's family were riled up in preparation for the big night. Bolaji's two sisters, Janet and Beatrice, were busy prepping the chicken for Christmas Day. Bolaji's father, Mr. Williams, was busy making several calls in the big, lavish living room, his voice deep and confident. After all, it takes a certain level of finesse and confidence to control multi-million-dollar companies all around the globe. Yes, make sure Vivian is on top of things with this merger. Our IPO depends on it, okay? Mr. Williams' voice could be heard reverberating in the living room all the way from the kitchen, where Mrs. Williams, Bolaji's mother, was giving instructions to the maid on some of the things she needed to do. Everything was moving very fast, but Mrs. Williams seemed to always be on top of things, almost like she operated on a different time and energy. Janet always said it's the Nigerian mom energy that's made her so capable. Oh yeah, Beatrice, come and make semo for your brother. The last time he called, he said he was already in a bus. She shrugged before saying, I don't know why he can't just let a driver go and pick him from school. He always likes to think he's one tough boy because he's big. Bolaji's sisters chuckled because their mother had made this complaint for 3 Christmases in a row. So at this point, it sounded like music to them. Everything was going smoothly until around 7:30 p.m. when they heard a gentle knock on the door. At this point, it had been hours since they last heard from Bolaji. So Bolaji's mother assumed that it was her only son finally knocking at the door. Mommy Bolaji, as she was often called, leapt with joy as she almost sprinted to the door to welcome her son. Bolaji, my son, you have finally decided to come home to see your mother. She had barely finished opening the door before she realized that it wasn't her son that was standing at the door. Instead, facing her was a tall figure shrouded behind a black mask. Before she could scream, there was a large shotgun pointed at her face. The tall and huge man holding the shotgun quickly shoved Mommy Bolaji with enough force to make her fall back on the sofa behind her. Janet and Beatrice were still in the kitchen and did not know what was going on just yet. Mr. Williams was in the living room watching the news and was shocked to see men with guns in his living room. Mr. Williams, even as he faced down the barrel of the gun pointed at him, wondered where Musa, their security man, right when they needed him the most. By now, all 6 men had found their way into the living room, all of them carrying some form of firearm. One of the masked men entered the kitchen and forced Bolaji's sisters and the maid to come and sit in the living room. The beautiful and lavishly furnished space that used to be a place for the family to come together, smile, share stories, have fun, and more had now turned into a place of their worst nightmare. Mr. Williams, I am only going to ask you this question one time, so think very carefully before you answer. Where is the money that you came in with 2 days ago? The dollars that you changed for the party you want to attend next week. That's what we came here for. The huge man, who seemed to be the leader of the armed robbers, took a deep sigh before saying, give us what we came here for, and you and your family will not have to hear from us again. But I don't know what you're talking about. Mr. Williams had not finished that sentence before the armed robber shot at the window. The shatter caused the ladies to scream. Please don't waste my time. We can either go upstairs now to check for it ourselves, or you can show it to us yourself. If we find it ourselves, we will kill you and every single member of your family, including your only son, Bolaji. Meanwhile, as all of this was going on, Bolaji just arrived in Lagos on Christmas Eve with a mix of emotions. His emotions, which were a tangled mix of irritation and resignation, twisted up inside. But at least he would get to see his mother. That's what he thought to himself. He had always felt like an outsider in his family, and the festive atmosphere that usually filled the house during Christmas only deepened his sense of detachment. The streets around their neighborhood buzzed with the sounds of carols and cheerful chatters. But to Bolaji, it all seemed like a world he didn't belong to. His mother's insistence that he come home had left him no choice. Though he suspected that it was less about Christmas and more about seeing her only son, and forcing him to come home for Christmas was the best way she knew how. Still, as he stepped into the familiar compound, he couldn't shake off an unsettling feeling that something was amiss. The streets were alive with music and laughter, but something felt off as he entered the compound. The gate was slightly open. The gate man, Musa, was nowhere to be seen. As he stepped into the house, his worst fears were realized. He could hear from outside the door as a man with a deep, familiar voice was telling his father that he should show him where the money was, or he would kill his entire family. His mother and siblings were tied up in the living room, surrounded by 6 armed robbers. While one of the armed robbers took Bolaji's father upstairs, another armed robber was taking valuable items from all around the house. The armed robber's leader, the huge man with the deep voice, backed others while waving his pistol. His voice cutting through the dense silence like a hot knife through butter. Move faster, we don't have all night, he snarled, glaring at one of his accomplices who fumbled with a bag of stolen items. His presence exuded menace, and the casual way he waved the pistol around made it clear he wouldn't hesitate to use it. Anyone makes a sound, and I will make sure you regret it, he growled, his voice sweeping over the terrified family, each one too petrified to even whimper. Bolaji froze in the shadows, taking in the scene. Suddenly, the leader turned, and Bolaji's heart dropped. There was something about the leader of the group that was oddly familiar to Bolaji. It felt almost like nostalgia. Bolaji quickly slipped back outside, but on his way to the other part of the compound, he ran into Musa, the security guard. Musa's face was bruised and was bleeding from everywhere, but his eyes burned with determination. Musa, what happened? What's going on here? Bolaji asked, looking confused, all while whispering. The silence of the night and the silent murmur of the crickets formed a heavy ambient sound. Oga Bolaji, them don't beat me, but them think say I die, but I no die. I hear their plan. We fit take them down together, Oga Bolaji, Musa whispered. Musa revealed he served in the military during the Nigerian Civil War, so he knew how to fight. If you have enjoyed the story so far, remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel. This goes a long way in helping us bring you more beautiful stories like this one. Thank you. The two quickly devised a plan. Musa would cut the power to the house to create confusion, while Bolaji would use his combat skills to neutralize the robbers. Once the lights went out, Bolaji slipped in through the back door. His first target was the robber guard in the kitchen. Using a chokehold, he rendered the man unconscious without a sound. Musa, armed with a metal pipe, took down another robber near the entrance. Bolaji's next confrontation was a younger robber in the hallway. The man spotted him and swung a machete, grazing Bolaji's arm. Despite the pain, Bolaji disarmed him with a well-placed kick and knocked him out. But the noise alerted the others, including the leader. Eh? What's that? What happened? Spider? Are you there? There was no answer. Musa also knocked out another armed robber with his big kondo, a large stick usually used to scare birds or animals away. I said, who goes there? Immediately the leader said those words. Bolaji's eyes widened. He knew exactly who was behind the mask. Uncle Dele. Those words pierced through the night with a convulsing intensity. The leader swung around to look in the direction of who called him. Bolaji was now standing in front of him. The leader of the armed robbers pointed his gun at him. The metallic glint, cold and unforgiving, sparkled under the dim lights. Knowing that his identity had been discovered, he removed his mask. His expression, a mix of rage and desperation. A man pushed to the brink. Bolaji, my boy. I knew if anyone would figure this out, it would be you, the leader said. But why, Uncle Dele? Why rob my father? You have always been so nice to you. The leader's face flinched a little, almost like the words of his favorite area nephew coursed through his cold heart and demeanor. You don't get it, Bolaji. Dele spat, his voice trembling slightly. Your family's wealth has left the rest of us to rot. This is justice. Bolaji's chest tightened, his heart pounding against his ribs. Justice? You call holding my family at gunpoint justice? You've been like family to us, Uncle Dele. How could you betray us like that? Dele's eyes softened for a fleeting moment, a flicker of guilt crossing his face. I didn't want it to come to this, he said, his grip on the gun faltering briefly. But survival isn't a choice, it is a necessity. Taking advantage of Dele's momentary lapse, Bolaji lunged forward, grabbing for the gun. The two struggled, their bodies crashing into furniture as they wrestled for control. Dele's strength was surprising, and for a moment, Bolaji feared he might lose. The gun went off with a deafening bang. The sound reverberated through the house. Bolaji cried out as a sharp pain tore through his side. Blood seeped through his shirt, staining it crimson. Gritting his teeth, he summoned every ounce of his training, twisting Dele's wrist until the gun clattered to the floor. Wow, I knew those taekwondo training would one day pay off, Uncle Dele said with sick sarcasm. As they both watched the gun roll to the side, with a swift kick, Bolaji sent the weapon sliding across the room, out of reach. Dele staggered back, his breath ragged. You are just like your father, he muttered bitterly, always thinking you are better than the rest of us. Bolaji, clutching his wounded side, squared his shoulders. And you are just a coward, hiding behind a gun to justify your greed. He tackled Dele to the ground, pinning him despite the searing pain. This ends now, Uncle. Bolaji had told Musa, the security guard, to try contacting the police at some point. As the distant wail of police sirens grew louder, Bolaji secured Dele with a length of cord ripped from a curtain. The weight of betrayal heavy on his heart, he glanced at his family, still tired and trembling, and silently vowed that no matter the cost, he would keep them safe. Bolaji, You don't understand. This is about survival. Your father's wealth has fed this family for too long without helping the rest of us. Bolaji's anger boiled over. You are betraying us for greed, Uncle Dele. Family means nothing to you. Bolaji tied up Uncle Dele securely and quickly ran to the kitchen to get a knife. He cut the rope that was used to bind the maid and gave her the knife to untie everyone else. In the same instant, Musa walked into the room. Oga, the police are coming. In one swift motion, the maid used the knife to stab Musa in the stomach, instantly killing him. She lunged forward with the knife in an attempt to kill Bolaji as well. But Bolaji's training kicked in, and he swiftly grabbed her by the hand, twisted it sideways, and held her in a blood choke hold. After a few seconds, the maid passed out. It turned out the maid was the brains behind the whole operation all along, and even Uncle Dele was just a pawn in the game. With Uncle Dele and the maid tied up, Bolaji untied the rest of his family quickly before passing out. The remaining robbers were arrested, but the victory was bittersweet. Musa's death weighed heavily on the family, and Uncle Dele's betrayal left a scar. Despite the pain, Bolaji's actions saved his family. That Christmas, they celebrated not with the presents or lavish meals, but with gratitude for their lives and a newfound appreciation for each other. While the Christmas ended on a good note for Bolaji's family, Christmas Eve was now tainted with a memory that would not be forgotten in a hurry. The following days were a blur of police interviews, hushed whispers from neighbors, and the constant, suffocating presence of fear. The Christmas decorations, once symbols of joy, now seemed like macabre reminders of what had almost been lost. Bolaji found himself replaying the events of that night, the feel of Dele's rough hands, the chilling click of the gun, the weight of Musa's lifeless body. Sleep offered no respite, only vivid nightmares that left him drenched in sweat. He had saved his family, but the cost was heavy. The easy camaraderie he had once shared with his parents and sisters felt strained, replaced by sheer trauma they couldn't quite articulate. He was a hero, they said, but inside, Bolaji felt anything but. The violence he had been forced to inflict had left a mark, a darkness that threatened to consume him if he let it. While it is good to help people and invite them into our own, this story is a reminder that we never really know who is envious of our success, and we should always be careful of the people we let into our lives. Being in good shape and knowing how to defend himself helped Bolaji save his family from the armed robbers. This is a wake-up call to everyone that perhaps on the next Boxing Day, don't just wrap gifts, you can also learn how to box. Merry Christmas. The end. We hope you enjoyed the story you just watched. Please subscribe to our channel and like this video as it helps us create more videos like this for you to enjoy. Thank you.